Welcome to another episode of Challenging the Norm. Here's an hers look at life and business with your hosts, Paul Snell and myself, Lindsey Burden. The podcast for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and business owners that want to experience success in their own way. Wrestling with the topics that matter and reality checking the latest trends in business. Paul works with business owners, showing them how they can take the stress out of transforming teams into performance powerhouses that love what they do, while I offer business coaching that empowers ambitious women in business to create financial abundance and a time-rich lifestyle without sacrificing their joy. And we've joined today, and we almost didn't, because I have COVID.
Boo. Boo.
Yes, boo-hoo. Who knew that was a thing anymore? But apparently it is. And I've not been feeling very well. So I'm either going to be over gushing to make up for it or under gushing at some point and fall off my chair. Who knows? But the reason we wanted to do it is because I asked if we could make this episode about pushing through and why people push through. Should we push through? And it came about because, here I was with COVID and I was like, I've just had a week's holiday. I got stuff to do, things I want to do, things I get to do. And I was like, do I just keep pushing? But please tell us, Paul, how are you? And do you have COVID?
Well, the answer to your question is no, I don't. I'm hugely impressed that we're doing this episode today, despite me suggesting we postpone. You're going, no, come on, Paul, we're doing this. There's a pushing through discussion. But no, I'm well, really, really well. And this is a really good topic. I think this idea of pushing through is very topical right now. If I look at the people that I'm talking to right now, just happen to be, there's an awful lot of pressure people are feeling just to keep going, whether that's financial, economic, and you mentioned about you come back with COVID and you've got lots to do. And of course, the question is, as a solopreneur, who does it if you don't? And so there's the pressure to push through, isn't there? And I love it. I love this topic. It's something that I think people wrestle with every day. There are times when I look at my calendar and go, I'm dreading Thursday, whatever that is on Thursday. I don't want to do those things. Can we not do them, please? Can someone please cancel them? So the idea of pushing through isn't appealing to me at all, but necessity at times, right? Pushing through, if we look at pushing through, it's almost always an issue of perceived necessity.
It is. And what was really interesting for me, testing on Sunday and knowing how busy my diary was, because I had rammed that week or this week. And then there was this work that was a hangover from before I went on holiday, because I'd got to the point I went, do you know what? Enough's enough. I'm going to be able to do a little bit of work over the weekend when I come back. It's all going to be great. I hadn't created the gap I needed. I hadn't created the space I needed because I didn't feel well enough even before I tested to do anything. And then it was like, well, now I have all this stuff to do and I don't feel well enough. And there is a real issue that when we just go, well, I'm just going to carry on, we don't do things very well. We create more work. And I was very conscious of that. So for me, it was very much about, okay, what are the key things that will move my business forward?
Mm-hmm.
What are the activities that really need my attention? What can wait?
Yeah.
And then looking at my diary and how I was feeling and knowing I was not at my A game, what are the things that I was going to be realistically able to give my attention to? And in some ways that sets a bit of a panic, because now I'm going to have a hangover from this week and a hangover from the week before I went on holiday. But we have, without our health, what have we got, Paul?
Well, I mean, you make a very good point. And what immediately jumps to mind when I listen to you is, and here's a crazy thought for you. It's almost like a complete paradox. Can you plan for pushing through?
Well, before we started, we were talking about this sort of topic that I'd landed upon us, said, this is what I want to talk about. There are so many elements of it. And there are times, I remember reading something, they said, it's okay to pull an all-nighter if you've got a deadline to meet. And I was thinking, yeah, that's fine if you've got, can do an all-nighter. And I think we've all done it, haven't we, when we've got lots to finish and we can work quite late on. But that does impact your next day. And that does impact your ability to work efficiently and effectively the next day. And I think it depends whether you're employed, not employed, or 101 things. And we were talking, weren't we, about this really fine line between pushing through because there's a deadline, there's work that you want to get done, you're excited, there's something happening, and making that an exception, and it just being what you always do, because you can't do it, you can't sustain it.
You can't, and statistically it's not supported, excuse me, the research tells us after 48 hours of working, not continuous, but let's take that a week, a productive week, after 48 hours our effectiveness in that work drops by 56%. So you sort of know, right, the numbers stack up as to, hang on a second, you've got to be careful here. 48 hours in its own is still a pretty good week, right? You're working for that. That's, if the average working week these days is 40 hours, 48 is pretty good. That's a good week. By exceeding that, and we often have this very irrational way of looking at action, of looking at the amount of work we put in, right? It's back when, don't get me started on the old days when it was, you need to be your desk between 9 to 5. And now, thankfully, we're reaching a point where we go, no, you have an objective. And if you do that in 5 hours, that's all I need you to do. So be clear on this. This is an objective thing, an outcome thing.
Yeah.
But this idea of working more than 48 hours, and yet we still do. I've been guilty of that so many times, thinking that that's okay. And just recently, in fact, while you were away on holiday, I had to complete a tender document. And I had help with that too. But by the end of how many hours of doing this tender document, I'd gone word blind. I couldn't actually read anything. And of course, I'd hit that wall where the return on the effort that I put in had dropped through the floor. And so I had to put that down. If I had continued with that, there's every chance that what had come out would be utter gibberish in the first place. And that was never going to go down well in a tender. But there's a prime example. And so when I talk about, can we plan for pushing through? Yes is the answer. You could turn and go, well, do you know what I'm going to do? Every other day I'll work half days. And therefore, if there is a drop over somewhere and I have to put the extra hours in, I've got those spare half days in the week. Of course. It doesn't work like that, by the way. Reality, it certainly is a business owner and particular solopreneur. If you think you're going to take half a day and not look at your phone or not do anything, boy, are you going to find a surprise doing that, right? But so I don't think it's realistic to plan for this pushing through thing to hit, because it's inflexible. It's like when people say to me, oh, Paul, it's all about work-life balance. And I go, I'm not convinced. I think what we're talking about here is work-life integration. How does your work, your business, integrate to your life without you simply sacrificing all that your life means to you, right? So when people say to me work-life balance, I go, there isn't such a thing. You just can't. As a business owner, balance is just, you can't have the rigidity that asks for. What you need to do is decide how that fits in with your life. And if for some people, I'm talking to a business owner the other week, and he said, oh no, I was working till 1 o'clock in the morning because there was so much to do and a business opportunity, and it was growth and it was all good stuff. But how do I turn off when you've worked so hard to get all this amazing opportunity and business coming in, and the next thing you're going, well, I'm pushing through. Now I need to not push through. Why would I not push through when I've got the business coming in? It's this crazy thing called having a business. And it's just the way it is. And I think pushing through has consequences. Yeah. Sometimes, let's not ignore this. Sometimes pushing through are good consequences, right? Doing that extra bit, going that extra mile can make all the difference. But we have to acknowledge the fact that there is a pushing through thing, that does exist. And that requires a very in the moment thought process, because pushing through, as I've just explained, is incredibly difficult to plan for. So if you're pushing through something, it's very much a mindful thing to sit there and go, okay, maybe I need to reflect just for a minute.